I declare the meeting open. Welcome everyone here. We haven't got anyone to co-opt, so it's just us three. It looks at the stage. Confirmation of minutes. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Alderman Thomas. Any dissent in that? Being no dissent, declare carried. Consideration of supplementary items. I don't think we've got any supplementary items. Any indications of pecuniary and conflicts of interest? I don't think we've got a conflict with membership of, that's a closed item, but I suppose we'll cover it off then. So any transfer of agenda items? Being none, we move on to reports. The first one is the COVID-19 format. I think as a matter of convenience, would someone like to move that we stay on Zoom until we are not allowed to? Thank you.
I'm happy to move that, Chair, but do we know what Councillor Ewan and Sherlock?
Certainly when I did an informal straw poll by email a few months ago now, a month ago, they both indicated the convenience they'd rather stay on Zoom at this stage. But I don't think, do we need to delay?
Okay, we'll take that as read.
Yeah, okay, I put that it's moved that we stay on Zoom until we're not allowed to. Those in favour, is there any dissent? No, we've agreed with that. The next item is the Regatta Grounds building request for lease. Officer, like just a very brief outline of that for us. Is it Mr. Doran?
Thanks, Kevin. Certainly the buildings are currently not occupied. They are relatively small buildings on the foreshore at the Domain Regatta Grounds. The Royal Hobart Regatta Association are very keen to secure access to both buildings. Perhaps a question to Mr. Avery, Chairman. Shannon, there has been some suggested development on the foreshore area of the Regatta Grounds. The actual location of these sheds, are they far enough away from that foreshore area if any proposed development did go ahead there, or should the lease include something that says in the event that the floating hotel that was muted proceeds, that we should be able to renegotiate? Can you help us on that one?
Look, I'd suggest they're probably far enough away, but at the same time, as a matter of caution, it wouldn't hurt to add that. From my understanding, the floating hotel was sort of meant to be out towards the end of the jetty, which you can see just in that aerial photo there. So they are fairly close, but so I don't think it would hurt to probably add that into the recommendation just to cover all bases with that one.
Good. Would someone like to move the recommendation with that addition? Thank you.
I'm happy to move it, Chair, but can I just looking at those sheds, they're certainly not the prettiest house in the street. When we looked at the hockey ground and we were looking at potentially a redevelopment in front of it in the car park at the hockey ground next to what could be the light rail area, and I think we made some provision, whether it was advice or something in relation to that. I mean, if I was setting up an upmarket floating hotel or a development there, I'd want to at least have the right to say to the council, well, we'll pay to paint them or do something to them, because they are an eyesore, in some respects. And it just, what is the Regatta, and I should have looked at it properly, what's the Regatta Association intend to do with it? I mean, it's fine to say they want to use it for storage, but it's an ugly eyesore sitting right at prime waterfront land. I would have thought we need to put some provision, or whether or not through you, Chair, to Mr. Avery, we are prepared to tart them up or do something. But at the moment, they look horrible.
Chairman, perhaps I can assist. Looking at that aerial photo that Mr. Avery's brought our attention to, it does seem to me that we ought to be having provision in the lease for a renegotiation in the event that hotel goes ahead, because I think with the access way changes and car parking changes that hotel development might bring, these buildings could be in some threat. And I agree with Alderman Thomas. They probably need some significant renovation if they're going to stay there. So perhaps we should have a clause in the lease that says, in the event of the hotel or other developments proceeding, that this lease needs to be renegotiated, so it's clear that it's an end point, or a point where there has to be some serious negotiation, and we are not compelled beyond that point.
Then I think, Chair, it would be probably better not to have an argument at the time on wording and simply say the period of 10 years, or at the time of the redevelopment of the da-da-da-da-da, in the event that that redevelopment materially is affected by the presence of those two sheds. I mean, it may well be at that time the council says, well, if you need storage, we'll let you store gear at a different point on a regatta grounds. But I think we just need to have that flexibility, Chair, through you to the Director.
Yep.
So I think we just need to have a time certain, 10 years, or at a time the council gives notice that that redevelopment is going to affect that 10.
Okay, so Mr. Avery and Mr. Doyle have got that. We'll include that into the recommendation. Now, welcome Councillor Ewan. We've just started. Alderman Thomas has moved it with those changes. Is there any other further discussion? Being no further discussion, I'll put the motion. Is there any dissent in the motion? Being no dissent, we move. I declare it carried. The next one is the review of the merits of developing an amber attack strategy for the City of Hobart. And my reading of it is it's a fairly straightforward thing. It's basically publicity in association with the Tasmanian Fire Service. Would you like to add any officer like to, through your Director, any extra things, Mr. Fisher or whatever? Okay, I'll open to you. Mr. Doyle or Mr. Fisher?
Look, Chairman, I think you've summarised it. Essentially, Mr. Fisher is revisiting the city's fire management strategy itself, and this, in essence, would be one chapter of the strategy. But we are suggesting that we engage with the local government association so as we can really look to the production of some community guide and information. Mr. Fisher, do you want to add to that?
Thank you, Director. Through the Chair, you're right. I think it's a deficiency in the current information to Tasmanian sort of landowners or householders. There's some really excellent examples around the nation of the retrofitting of established properties to deal with amber attack that haven't been built according to the Australian standard. I think there's a really big win for us. I would propose that the city with LGAT, put it up through a natural disaster resilience grants program to be funded by through that federally funded program next year, and produce something that's available Tasmania-wide rather than just a specific City of Hobart document.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Mr. Fisher. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Thomas. I see that I've finally got the hands up thing working. So Deputy, you had your hand up. Did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think Mr. Fisher's probably answered my question just in relation to how this might be funded, because I would have thought that this could be quite an expensive undertaking. What sort of interest do we know has Legatta got in actually partnering with us or undertaking this? Have we asked them as yet?
Look, I raised that question with Legatta today at a meeting I had on the Bushfire Mitigation Measures Bill, and they're interested in that. They see some merit in it. Funding was obviously an issue that they had. How would we fund it? And I think the natural disaster resilience grants, it really does fit exactly with this model, with this project. And the Tasmanian Fire Service are currently proposing to do a review of their documents. So I think time's right for us to raise the opportunity for a cooperative arrangement with an external fund source for that. I think it's all three agencies are pretty keen to see the merit in it and pretty keen to cooperate on it. So I think we're making a statement that I think everyone agrees with, that we can do it and we can do it quite easily with external funding.
And just a subsequent question, do you think the science will kind of sharpen, if you like, in relation to where ember attacks might start from? And I mean, is that sort of evidence starting to build as time goes by?
Well, Deputy Lord Mayor, it is, at least in terms of the modelling that we have now, which is Project Phoenix Rapid Fire, which is the base model used nationally for predicting fire behaviour and fire spread, has now a reasonably good model for ember attack, which it never had initially in the early versions of it. I suppose it sharpens up the fact to say that any area is likely to experience ember attack if the fire starts under the right conditions and under the right location. So on the modelling that we've done, you can expect to see embers from a fire from Collinsvale that will extend through all through the city down into Sandy Bay, and it will actually throw embers, on the modelling at least, across Derwent onto South Arm. So I think the fact is that everyone can be exposed to ember attack if the fire starts in the wrong place on the wrong day.
Okay. Is there any further questions or comments? Okay. I'll put that motion that's been moved by Alderman Thomas. Is there any dissent? Being no dissent, I declare that the motion carried. Now, I've noted Councillor Coates has joined us. Good day, Councillor Coates. Would someone like to co-opt Councillor Coates? I'm sure you. Someone like to move.
I'll move
co-opt. Thank you, Councillor Ewan. Any dissent? No dissent. Welcome, Councillor Coates, a member of the.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So we move on to the next item, which is the Hellhole Saddle update. Perhaps we could hand over to you, Director.
Thanks, Chairman.
Yep.
Very briefly, Council, when it considered this matter last, asked us to report back by the end of the calendar year. It's a very brief report, just letting the committee know that we have progressed planning. We have a much more modest plan for the Hall Saddle site, but we have extended our thinking to take in some additional projects to help with traffic flow, both at Fern Tree and along near Bracken Lane. So this really is an update. There's an attachment that gives a précis on our current level of thinking and quantum of cost. And we are absolutely looking at every opportunity for external funding. We think it is, because the external funding, particularly coming from the federal government now, is looking for co-investment, we think our best chance is to secure some more funding that will help us progress the business case and the design, whilst we get our own finances perhaps in a more sound state, so as the council can give consideration as to whether it wants to invest as well. But what's before you now is essentially a car park, an area that could be developed as a future visitor centre, but the visitor centre element has been deleted from the original proposal. So we're looking at a car park, some traffic improvements at Fern Tree, a roundabout at Bracken Lane to help us if the gate's closed, and to improve that pedestrian connectivity from the Hall Saddle site through to Fern Tree. So I'm sure Mr. Fisher or I are happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Any questions?
Yes, I've got one. Are we intending ultimately, Chair, through you to the officers, are we intending potentially to be charging for parking?
The short answer, Alderman Thomas, is we very much like to leave that opportunity alive. If we can secure some funding assistance now to help us with the design and particularly the geotech elements of design and stormwater design, the other thing we'd like to secure some funding for is business planning, because it is quite possible that we do look at applying a charge for those that utilise this car park, and that charge could in turn provide us with some opportunity to actually do development of the site. I mean, depending on the number of spaces and council's appetite for a charge and the likely utilisation, that revenue could even service a debt and could be the council's investment to help us secure external funding. So that's kind of the next, the idea is very much alive in our mind, but it's the next element that we'd like to approach.
Yeah, I was only asking it, and I suppose it goes past the design phase, whether or not there was a chance for PPE, a public-private partnership here. Indeed, as the visitor centre was there, and it was a cost of parking on the mountain itself, or the restrictions to parking meant this was the go-to. Then potentially there might be some private equity out there join with us and take it off the burden somewhat.
Right. Any further comment by anyone? Okay, does someone move the recommendations? Basically, essentially, we go out to now proceed to secure external funding. So thank you, Deputy. Did you want to make any comments as well? No. Okay, I think it's progressing, and if we have a proposal to have space there for a visitor centre in the future, we're future-proofing it anyway. So, but our car park and the suggested change at Broken Lane and with roundabout sounds like we'll solve a few traffic problems there too. So I'll put the motion. Is any dissent? No dissent. I declare the motion carried. We move on to next agenda item, which is next agenda item, which is the nominee sort. Now, as the report indicates, Alderman Thomas is a member, a very valuable member. So could we could we have some nominees? If hopefully there's only one nominee, so we don't have to go through a vote. Nominee, someone like to nominate Alderman Thomas? Thank you, Councillor Ewan.
Thank you.
Any further nominations? I know the trust, because there's two trust members here, myself and Alderman Thomas and a deputy proxy trust member. The trust is going through a significant period of time, considering some serious issues, and it's probably not the best time to change horses, especially when that member is a very effective and professional trust member. Okay, if there's no further nominations, then that's the only nomination. So I put that to the vote. Is there anyone dissent to that? Being no dissent, that motion's carried with Alderman Thomas being the nominee. Thank you. So the next item is a cute one, backyard bandicoots. I don't think I've got any backyard bandicoots in my place, but certainly down the shack I have. Okay, I open the item for discussion. Would someone like to introduce that? And Councillor Ewan's indicated she wants to speak, but perhaps someone like to introduce, an officer like to introduce it.
Look, I think it's fairly self-explanatory, Chairman. It is a promotional activity that's been developed by Mr. Fisher's team, and we are seeking committee's endorsement to roll it out. I don't know whether Mr. Fisher's got anything to add, but we're certainly happy to take any questions committee might have.
Through the chair, you're quite right. They are very cute. In my personal opinion, they're much cuter than koalas, and importantly, that they represent the only wild population of eastern-barred bandicoots that exists in Australia at the moment. So it is an opportunity to get the City of Hobart behind the conservation of this species, which appears to be reasonably common in sections of the city, and I think could become more common if our residents took them to heart and protected them from the threats that they endure.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Now, Councillor Ewan want to say some words, I think.
I actually just wanted to move the item, but also say thank you for putting together such an adorable information thing. It was really nice looking at all the really cute bandicoots. So yes, happy to move that. Thank you.
I've always, Chair, would have loved if they weren't a wild animal. I would love to have had a meerkat as a pet, but you made the bandicoot a very close second here, guys.
Okay, no one else wants to make any comments? Okay, now Councillor Ewan's moved it, moved the recommendation. Any dissent in that? Being no dissent, declare that motion carried. So we move on to status report. Someone like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Ewan. I think Councillor Ewan got in just slightly before Alderman Thomas. Okay, is there any discussion? Being no discussion, I put the motion. Is there any dissent? Being no dissent, I declare the motion carried. There are some questions without notice. Would someone like to move they're accepted? Again, thank you, Councillor Ewan. So we can't discuss questions without notice. I put that motion. Is there any dissent? Being no dissent, we move on to, I declare the motion carried unanimously. Questions without notice? Any questions without notice today? So Councillor Ewan.
Thank you. And Glenn, I'm sure you love all the questions that I ask on this committee. So this one is about the gardens and planter boxes that we've got around the city that are changed seasonally. So I'm interested in how this fits in with our sustainability and climate action strategies, as well as the community vision document. So I'm just wondering if you could provide a response. Obviously happy for you to take this on notice, as to the rationale behind changing the gardens and planters seasonally. And part two is how we could design our city garden spaces to better support native flora and fauna and biodiversity. And the third part is the financial implications of continuing as we are versus switching to permanently installed garden beds and or planter boxes. I can email that through to somebody if that's helpful.
Chairman, that would be helpful. Can I just get some clarification, please? Councillor Ewan, you're talking about the planter boxes in the CBD that are regularly changed and the garden beds that have the annuals, say along Tasman Highway and the ABC roundabout, places like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
I think, Chairman, if that could be emailed to Ms. Herbert, that'd be great. Thank you. And I'll take it on notice.
Good, thank you. Any further questions without notice? Okay, being no further questions, I haven't got a question without notice, so I declare the. Now, do we have to have a motion to go into closed?
Yes, Chair, we do.
Yeah, that's right. So thank you, Deputy. I put that. Any dissent? Being no dissent, I declare it carried unanimously. So this meeting's closed.